And my grandpa would always say, it's better to have problems you can solve than problems you can't solve. I think that's true. And so we have words for that. Well, these risks, some of them can be solved. Some of them can be de-risked. Sometimes we can take risk out of a situation. Other times we can't. In fact, the nature of corporations is dealing with that in some kind of meaningful way. There are several devices for doing so, and we'll learn a little bit more what they mean, but in general you can diversify away risk. Has your mother ever told you don't put all your eggs in one basket? Chelsea, what does that mean? Why give the advice, don't put all your eggs in one basket?
Essentially don't assume that you're going to do well immediately.
And why not? I mean, what's wrong with that? Like, it makes you feel good that you're going to do well immediately.
There's too much risk involved. There's the possibility that it won't work out.
What's the risk? And what's the risk if you have just one egg? I assume the basket's supposed to hatch, right? So what happens? Not all eggs hatch. So if you only have one egg in your basket and you're counting on this one egg, you need it to hatch. You can't let it break, right? Whether you have a bunch of eggs in a bunch of baskets, you're diversified, right? If some things go wrong, if a couple baskets drop, if a few eggs don't crack, if some things go badly, you still get a couple chickens out of the deal. Now, diversifying isn't that easy. You know, you go to the market, you buy one egg, right? It's easy to maintain. You can have your little incubator and what have you. We had this in third grade, is what I'm thinking of, right? We had the little chickens in the classroom. No, anybody? You know, the classroom had chickens in it? Yeah. Did they all hatch? No, they never all hatch. So you could pick, I'm going to pick that egg and put all my money on 23, you know. I shouldn't talk about roulette strategies. I'm a terrible gambler. I don't actually gamble. So occasionally I'll try to make references to that and I'll probably get it wrong. Someone will correct me and tell me how craps really works. Insurance is another way to get rid of risk. So I have a dog. I have pet insurance, which never seems to pay out. And insurance is another way to get rid of risk. Insurance are risk pooling groups. And that's what insurers do, is they're actually combining all the risk. And you might not know this, but did you know insurers have insurance too? There's an entire industry that insures insurers as well. And it's mostly located in London. There's a couple firms about that. So even insurers try to diversify away their risk by getting insurance. And why insurance? Well, insurance takes certain risks that you might not be able to afford. So, for example, I have health insurance through the school. But if I didn't, you might be, for example, on the Affordable Care Act, right? You might have insurance through that, or someone you know does. So you pay a certain amount every month. You pay the full amount. If you're an employee, thankfully, I shouldn't say thankfully. I'm not so sure the system of employer-paid insurance works so well, but that's for another day, and part of my research. But if you are getting your own insurance, let's say you pay $1,000 a month, and if you have a health event, you pay a certain amount of deductible, and the insurance company pays the rest. Now, knock wood, most years you're going to pay money and get nothing back. But God forbid, you have a day that you find out you have, something really, really difficult to deal with, a really bad disease that's going to cost you $50,000. You're going to be really glad you have that insurance because you don't have $50,000. So insurance is a way of diversifying away your risk, and businesses can buy insurance too for a number of things. They can buy insurance against their property being damaged. They can buy insurance against their directors and officers being sued by their shareholders. So a number of types of insurance here these are risk eliminating devices, but they're costly, just like diversification. And how many eggs can you really handle? I mean, okay, so we established that 2 eggs is better than 1, and 3 eggs is better than 2, and 4 eggs is better than 3, and insurance takes away risk, but you might have noticed at some point you need a bigger incubator. At some point, you're paying thousands of dollars a month for insurance you never use. Or in my case, $34.95 a month for insurance that never pays for my dog. But you can also self-insure, right? And that means that you simply take that money and you put it away for a rainy day. But we'll probably get into a bit some of the cognitive reasons why people aren't so good in that. And with incentives, you can control risk by giving people incentives. So one issue with employees and employers are, if you are an employee, what do you want? Has anyone here had a job? Money. You want to get paid. Thank you. That's right, Brett. You want to get paid, right? And what does your boss want? Does he and your boss, he wants to pay you, doesn't he? No, more than anything, that's what bosses do. Like, I can't wait to pay Brett. No, what does your boss want? He wants to get paid by you doing what? Working, right? He wants you to work and you want to get paid. So we have a bit of what we call a misalignment of incentives. Why? Well, not to speak to you personally, but some people might want to work as little as possible to get paid. And some employers might want to work you as hard as possible while paying you as little as possible. So there's some ways that you can actually straighten those incentives out. And part of my work in startups and equity and giving people part of a company, giving them a share in it, is one way that we can eliminate that type of risk, that a person will have different interests than you would. And part of that is how you structure your business, which is really about Meinhard Solomon, about how they structured their firm. So in this case we will learn a bit about some of the fiduciary duties. And I want to caution you, first off, I'm not testing you on this case. You're not going to have to recite Meinhard v. Solomon. And in fact, or Salmon, I say Solomon, I'm just wrong about that. I'm pretty sure it's Salmon. Anyway, I'm going to work on that. So correct, it's salmon. So in Meinhard v. Salmon, we learn about some fiduciary duties, but they're not accurate. What we learn about here is about learning about fiduciary duties in principle. Don't take Cardozo's words to heart. He was talking a long time ago, and I'm not sure he was right even then, and neither did Judge Jackson. And he wasn't right. Fine. But it's a very famous case, and so we read it. And it does get the point across about the kind of duties that people owe to each other and why, the kind of things that can go wrong when people don't respect fiduciary duties. And judges have made these laws over time, and to a certain extent, certainly in Delaware and some other states, they have been codified into corporate statutes. But a lot of this comes from agency law, agency principles, and if you want to learn more, a lot of this is from Section 8 of the Restatement Third of Agency, and that is, the restatements, as you probably know, are a combination that very learned people have got together of what the law is kind of across America generally. And these are meant to align expectations with the law. So fiduciary duties are made to create a default system that helps people not have to bargain for it. So there are certain things you expect of your boss, certain things your boss expects of you, right? So expects that you're going to show up at work, you're not going to steal from the till. That a customer comes in to your computer store and says, I'd like to buy a Dell, and you go, oh, I've got one in my trunk, right? We all know that's not cool, but why? Why is that not okay? And how does the law operate to align our expectations with norms? And part of that is understanding why people do what they do. And it does this with two general types of rules, mandatory and default. So again, the concept here is that the law has made these fiduciary duties and ensconced them in law either by judges or by statute in order to align human expectations with legal norms so that the law actually reflects what people would do. And the reason for this, at least in part, is because it would be hard to bargain for this every time, right? So, you go for a job, Drew shows up for the job, and I'm the boss, so you're going to work at my computer store, so let's have a 47-page contract, and so you can't, tell the customers that you've got a better version in the back of your van that you'll sell for less, you can't steal from me, you can't, whatever, these laws would make it complicated to get a job, right, Drew? I mean, you go in there, you say, I want to work, and I say, okay, here, you get paid this amount, you'll work these hours. Simple, right? So law makes things simple. What that's doing is we can say that formally, we can call that it reduces transaction costs. By reducing these transactions costs, we get more transactions. Why would that be? Well, we only do a deal, we only have a transaction when both people think they're going to win. I say think they're going to win because people have bounded optionality, they're not always right. But when people go to a deal, right, I'd like to sell you my car for $20,000. Do you want to buy it? Well, it depends, right? Depends on whether you think it's worth $20,000. If you think it's worth $20,001, you'd probably want to buy it, short of taxes, which also destroy deals. But, if after all the taxes and everything you pay, you end up getting something more value than what you're paying for, great. And I'm only going to sell it to you for $20,000 if I think it's worth that or less. Why would I sell a stranger something for less than it's worth? I could sell it for more, ostensibly. Again, given there's a deep enough market and caveats. The perfect world we're talking about here. But generally, people only enter into deals when they both think they're going to win. Later on in the course, I'm not sure how many charts I can throw at you at once. I do have one series of charts and two charts today. Try to keep the charts to a minimum. But we have a concept called Pareto optimality that I'll discuss briefly to talk about when people will actually enter into a transaction. And the law helps with that when it keeps those costs low, because what happens, we have this range where you think it's worth this and I think it's worth this, and it gets more expensive and more expensive and more expensive until there's no more deal. So law makes that cheaper, and in that way is helpful. Now, those laws don't have to be mandatory. They can also be default, which means they can be changed by the parties. So you go into my office and say, I'd like to work for you, and there are certain conditions about that. Some things can't be waived. You can't work for less than minimum wage. But whether or not you have to comply with certain regulations, whatever, it doesn't matter which ones they are. Point is that there are some rules that you can waive. The parties can agree to something different, and others that cannot be changed. So we call those mandatory and default. The type of rules I'm talking about that I think are really helpful that would be usually default, the majoritarian rules. A majoritarian rule means a rule that most people would agree to anyway. So they're primarily responsible for reducing transactions costs in that way. Right? The law already is what most of you would have thought, so you don't have to think about it. More transactions happen because of lower costs. Some laws are tailored, meaning you can choose, because I want to enter into this type of relationship, and this set of law works for me. I want to have this type of relationship where I'm going to have a separation of ownership and control. I want shares. I want to be able to incentivize my employees. I want to be able to hire and fire people. I want limited liability. So I'm going to take the set of rules called corporate law. That's tailored for my application. On the other hand, you say, I want to have a lawn care business. It's just me. I have no one else who's working for me. I just, don't want to get sued. Oh, we have a single-member limited liability company for that. We're going to take that set of tailored rules. And then we have penalty rules, which are essentially majoritarian rules reversed, that if you don't do this, you will have this result. But again, the goal here is in order to try to make the laws conform with human behavior. And so the nature of U.S. corporate law is a set mostly of default and some mandatory rules. And as we'll see as we go through horizontal federalism, competition among the states to have the best corporate laws, whatever that means, we'll see that these type of rules have evolved over time to accommodate different types of situations, different type of people.